Hello, my name is Ellie. This is Sam.
Hi.
Today we're talking about the importance of recognizing conscious or unconscious behavior in your potential partner, because you cannot have a conscious relationship if both parties are not conscious. So stay till the end because we're going to give personal examples of dates that we went on that are great examples of unconscious and conscious behavior. Really briefly, I want to describe that unconsciousness is a complete identity with your ego identity, meaning that you are completely identified with the ego chatter, the thoughts that you have, and it really creates a prison of emotions. And if you don't have self-awareness that you are not your thoughts and that you can move beyond your thoughts, then it really creates unconscious behavior. So that's a brief description of unconsciousness. So Sam, what are some examples of unconscious and conscious behavior that you can potentially identify in a potential partner?
Yeah, so I have a few examples of conscious and unconscious behavior that I'll go through right now. And these are going to be really important going forward in developing a conscious partnership to be able to identify these behaviors. And starting off with unconscious behaviors, we have blaming others, insulting others, and also gossiping. These are three big unconscious behaviors that you're going to want to be aware of when you're first meeting somebody. And if they're exhibiting these behaviors, blaming, insulting, or gossiping, then you might not want to be moving forward with them in a conscious relationship, because we can't have a conscious relationship with unconscious people. And in addition to that, if they're constantly complaining, if they are over talking, let's say you're trying to say something and they are talking over you, or they're interrupting you. Maybe you're trying to share a story and you can't finish your story. It's a good example of an unconscious behavior. And lastly, I'll mention mood. If this person is constantly unhappy, if they're miserable or sad or depressed or just unhappy with life in general, even at little life situations that shouldn't necessarily bother them, they let that get to them. This is an unconscious behavior that you're going to want to be aware of, and it's a big indicator of unconsciousness. So that's just a few examples of the many examples that exist for unconscious behavior. And some conscious behaviors are active listening. And these are behaviors that you're going to want to look out for and embrace when looking for a conscious partner. So active listening is the way you kind of identify that behavior is if you're speaking and the other person is looking you in the eye. They're really just highly focused on everything you have to say. They're absorbing every word, and you can tell based off of their body language and other subtle cues. And they're also responding in a way that is relevant to the content you're sharing. They're inquiring and commenting in a relevant way. And that is one key conscious behavior that you'll want to be aware of. Another good one is taking responsibility for your inner space. Now, there are many examples of this, and one good example is if the other person is angry at something, and instead of projecting out that anger on you or their environment or other people, they find a quiet space in silence to work through and process that anger, whether it be reflection or introspection or meditation. They take that time to process that depleting emotion rather than projecting it out onto the world around them. That is a good example of taking responsibility for your inner space and a highly conscious behavior. Another few is speaking kindly about others, even if other people are unkind. Conscious people speak kindly about other people. And they also do not complain, or very rarely do they complain. Complaining is not an attribute of a conscious person. So you want to be aware of the absence of complaining in a potential conscious partner. And mood is another big one. Just like unconsciousness, folks are unhappy. Conscious people are generally mostly happy. They are content. They are satisfied with any given life situation, even something that could be perceived as negative. They still feel fulfilled and satisfied in life. So these are some really highly conscious behaviors that you want to be aware of, and just a few examples of the many that exist for unconsciousness and conscious behavior.
And so, for an example of an unconscious date, a partner that was unconscious and was exhibiting highly unconscious behavior, about 6 months before I met Sam, I went on a coffee date with this gentleman, and he seemed really nice. In hindsight, I think that he was just agreeing with everything I was saying. He was telling me what I wanted to hear. And one of the things we discussed on that first date was how I had an aversion to alcohol. I really didn't like it. I didn't want to be around it. I couldn't stand the smell of it. And he agreed, and he didn't drink. That's what he said. And so on the second date, he wanted to go to the beach. And I thought, well, that's great. I love the beach. We got there, he parked the car, and he went across the street to the store, and he came back with a 40. And I was like, oh, I thought you didn't drink. And he said, oh, it's the weekend. And I was thinking to myself, oh gosh, I'm in trouble here. And so when we were leaving, he was also exhibiting lots of unconscious, like Sam had said, a lot of blaming his life situations. And so I knew right away that I wasn't going to have a second date with this person. But as we were getting into the car, we were literally like facing the beach, and there was like a few droplets of sand in his car. And he looks at me and he says, what is this? Where did this come from? What is this? And he's just really going off on me about these like 5 grains of sand. And I'm thinking, oh dear God, I've really got myself into a situation here. So he was massively unconscious, and obviously I didn't go on a second date with him. But Sam has a good example of conscious behavior, so he's going to tell you that.
Yeah, so I have a good example, like Ellie said, of conscious behavior that I identified in a potential partner. I actually saw this person 2 times on 2 dates, just a few weeks before I met Ellie. And we had talked extensively before agreeing to meet for a first date, and I identified conscious behavior and the potential of having a conscious partnership with this person. So we decided to meet, and right away identified that she was a very good active listener. And I could tell this because when I was speaking, she would be looking me in the eye, and I could just tell based off of her body language and her cues that she was really engaged in what I was saying. She was interested, and she would respond relevantly to the content that I was sharing, whether it be a question or a comment. So I identified this conscious behavior in her right away. It doesn't take long sometimes. And this is a good example of identifying a conscious behavior in someone else. And it turns out that didn't work out. We just weren't in alignment with some other things. So we decided to discontinue seeing each other after that second date. And I'm really happy and grateful for that, because I met Ellie, who is a much better match for me. And this is just a good example of just how even if you find a highly conscious person, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a good match for you.
Right. And in our next video, we're going to talk about presenting your needs with your partner. So stay tuned for that. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for connecting with us. Thank you.